Hello, my name is Eva Tibbetts, and you are listening to my podcast for a high school senior project. Before we begin, I need to put out a trigger warning for my sensitive listeners, because we will be discussing serious and sensitive subjects. Anywho, let's begin. Every senior at my high school has to create their own question and answer it themselves. And my question is, what factors contribute to body image and eating disorders? This will be a 3-part series as I dig deeper into the 3 primary factors for this, which is 1. Social media. Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Those are the primary platforms that I could think of, and of course there's many more. Then 2, we have your social circles, which is you're in a circle of friends and family. And then 3, finally, beauty standards. And of course we all know what this is, and we may even have our own definition of beauty standards. This first episode will be about social media. Personally, in my case, social media has been a love-hate relationship. I was born in 2002, so I grew up with technology. It was constantly around me. And of course, I had my first phone at probably of the age of 7 or 8, and it slid horizontally. Now, looking back, it's probably like a dinosaur. Well, from then to now, technology has definitely adapted, grown smarter, faster, and better. And of course, consistently been popular. Well, at the same time, the internet has done the same. For instance, my first time ever on social media would probably be either on Instagram or YouTube. Of course, I watched trending videos like the Harlem Shake and posted duck lip selfies on my Instagram page. But I also never took the time to realize how much social media controlled not only what I saw, but also my everyday life. I never knew the true dangers of social media, and neither did my parents, as we were all experiencing something new. But at least now I have an idea. Through social media, we of course can talk to others and spread information, but something that not up until recently has been talked about, which I think is important to talk about, is mental health. I believe that not up until 2019, it wasn't really normal to talk about your mental health or other people's mental health. People assumed that maybe if you were depressed, then that meant you hated the world, cried every day, was antisocial, basically a bunch of nonsense and basically incorrect information. But now things have changed, and I believe personally people have become better sympathizers. A poll on my Instagram page that had around 200 votes asks, does social media have a large impact on mental health issues, specifically food and body related? 90% of people said yes, and 10% people said no. So seeing from these results, it's clear that there is a problem. Yes, social media can have bad sides, but I guess there's also some good ones as well. I interviewed some students at my high school, and this is what they had to say. I asked, what are the positives and negatives of social media that you see? The queen of singing, Vaishnavi Gudala, a senior at BHS, said this. Social media can be fun, and I personally like posting on Instagram because it allows me to express my personality and have some fun. However, social media drains me very, very fast, and it can get very, very toxic. Not only physically, but mentally. On the internet, it's so easy for someone to just hide behind a screen and comment horrible things. This is what I see all the time in TikTok comments and tweets on Twitter. Social media is also a huge contributor to unhealthy and unrealistic beauty expectations, and in my experience, I have felt very insecure because of social media. Another person that I interviewed, a student activist, Sarah Sheikh, a senior at BHS, had to say this. For me, a positive about social media is that it is a great space for anyone to be creative and reach out to as many people as possible. In my personal opinion, a great benefit of social media is that I get to connect with my friends and family who live in India, and I essentially am updated with what is happening in their lives. Additionally, I follow many content creators such as photographers or models who are extremely creative in their photo shoots. Another positive of social media is that we have access to so much information, whether it's about news or entertainment. Following news accounts is an easy way for us to be exposed to news happening in the world. Lastly, a positive of social media is that we get to bring together our power as humans and lead movements like BLM, where we can quickly spread information and gather support. However, there are many negatives to social media, such as the idea that we have to live up to the expectations of other creators/influencers. In addition, even though social media allows us to spread information, it is dangerous if someone spreads incorrect information. Many are likely to believe it, and there is no one to fact check it. Overall, mental health is a serious topic, and we should take it seriously. I think that also something through mental health is how content creators use their fan bases or followers. Some spread really positive and great information, while others spread purposeful fake information, or they do it for an ad, or they themselves, the content creators of course, believe this information, and so they spread it unknowingly. What I'm trying to point out is dieting and physical looks. Most people on social media are trying to look their best as possible, and this creates unrealistic ideas for others, especially younger generations who are first starting to enter social media. I interviewed some students at my high school, and this is what I asked. What is your stance on the younger generations interacting with social media? Do you think that they may be affected later, and why? Here is Sarah Shake once again. I don't think that the younger generation should be exposed to social media, especially if they aren't shown what things to avoid and how they should interact with social media in the first place. I feel that many kids are just handed a phone where they have access to so many social media platforms, but they aren't taught what dangers to avoid, which can be harmful later on. I had an interview with taco enthusiast Jensine Wagner, a senior at BHS, and this is what they had to say.
I personally think it's okay for younger generations to be on social media just because that's like our evolution, like everything's online. They should be able to go online. But I also feel like the way social media is set up right now could definitely affect them negatively in the future, just because the way like the platform works with all like the negative comments and how easy it is to do stuff without consequences. So I definitely feel like they should be watched right now, but in the future, if social media changes, it's good for them to get on it.
I had an interview with swim master Allison Sharada, a senior at BHS, and this is what she had to say. I truly believe that the younger generation shouldn't be interacting with social media until at least the later years of middle school/going into high school. I think this because during the phase of middle school, that's when our self-esteem is most vulnerable, because everyone's going through an awkward time. And I think that mixing social media into this stage is just going to make it worse because everyone feels awkward about themselves as it is. But then having access to look onto another person's profile and comparing ourselves to them is just going to make us feel even worse about ourselves. And this can lead us to changing who we are even more. And this can be dangerous for our self-image and representation. I also had an interview with someone who everyone knows, Joshua Taylor, a senior at BHS. He says, I feel as though it's not a bad thing. I think that things need to be limited, like the type of content they receive and make. The gymnastics captain, Samantha Mira, a senior at BHS, had to say this.
I think that there can be lots of negative consequences from kids using social media too young. Like I said before, they can be subjected to inappropriate content way too soon. But mostly lots of young kids make mistakes about what they post and say on social media. When kids are too young, they sometimes don't understand how far their reach can be on social media, and they can't grasp the idea that what they put on social media is there forever and anyone can see it. This can 100% affect their futures because things they have said in the past can come back to haunt them. And even if your viewpoint has changed on a certain subject, once you put your original thoughts out onto the internet, anyone can access them and people can form opinions about you without knowing the real you.
But overall, this new information that people are gaining can be really scary because of the effects that it may have on someone. On social media, you see people who you can't tell if they are being their genuine selves or basically being a publicity stunt. But now we all know that even though you can't trust the media, it's almost like you get sucked in anyways. You are manipulated to trust content creators. Just trust false media, they say. Trust the ads, they say. Of course, some are easy to move around and understand that they are fake, but over time, media has almost made it easier and easier to lie and act. There are plenty of content creators trying to show you the right way to diet, to lose weight within a week, giving out 5 easy steps to get abs within 2 days, and other crazy nonsense. And don't get me started on Photoshop. I remember growing up, people used Photoshop constantly to alter their appearance, and of course, they still use it now. As I interviewed many students at my high school, I asked this: do you think social media influencers have a large power on social media? And do you think it's healthy to idolize them? Here is Vishnavi Gudala again, and this is what she had to say. Yes, they definitely do. They have huge platforms and large amounts of followers, so anything they post can affect so many people in different ways that they may not even think of. There are so many influencers who do not use their platforms to spread awareness of important issues, and it is very sad to see because what they post influences so many people and can change so many opinions. It is very unhealthy to idolize them. Many social media influencers are teenagers, and at the end of the day, they are normal teenagers that make mistakes, so idolizing them is not the best idea in my opinion. A Taylor Swift fanatic, Carly Mattson, a senior at BHS, had to say this: I think social media influencers have way too much power. They have such a large platform of young kids that will listen to anything they say. I do not think it's healthy to idolize them because their lives are so glamorized and fake. Here is Samantha Mira again, and this is what she had to say.
I think that they definitely have a large power on social media, hence the name influencers. They have a lot of influence, especially on their young, impressionable followers. And I don't think that we should idolize anyone we don't truly know, including influencers. No matter how well you think you know someone, you can't really judge a person's true character based on what they show online. And I also think that idolizing people who only show the best moments of their life on social media is not really setting yourself up to have great confidence, because you can end up comparing your worst moments to their best ones, which is really unhealthy.
Also, a professional high school improver, Doug Edwards, a senior at BHS, had to say this: influencers have power over their platforms to an extent, the same way anyone does with a business, so ultimately it's up to the consumer to say if they succeed. I think it's very bad to idolize them because it paints them as these things above the normal. So when they inevitably do something wrong, they don't get the proper consequences. It also, on the other side of the coin, holds them to an unfair standard. I think that it's okay to admire and enjoy content from influencers, but the important thing is to remember that they are humans and should be treated as such. Creators, I believe, definitely have a lot of influence, especially when they have an adoring fan base. Additionally, audiences, younger audiences especially, are faced with self-esteem issues due to not realizing that the social media world is not real. Social media has caused many to have body issues and self-esteem problems. People now have created either a form of guilt, unhappiness, and overall want to look like what's on their feed. This is because if someone is advertising a diet pill that is a placebo and telling people to become skinny, it just creates this negative reality of how people see themselves. They waste money and then continue to judge and compare themselves to others who may not be their body type. This also goes with editing. Many mental health professionals believe that edited pictures is a large reason for body dysmorphia, which is basically when you see yourself differently than what you actually look like. Many students have shown correlations between social media and eating disorders. People have begun dieting to try and obtain the body that they want, when in reality, this dieting can actually be incorrect when done on your own. People are faced with ads of other people promoting unhealthy dieting treatments and weight loss solutions, which are probably all placebos or pyramid schemes. People begin to change unnaturally, leading their bodies to become hurt in the process. For example, there's Snapchat. It has multiple filters that change your appearance unnoticeably sometimes, giving you the idea that you constantly look this way. Our brains may not be able to process that we don't actually look like this, giving a shock to those who have body dysmorphia when they look in the mirror. Daily, we view advertisements, posts, and other images that are heavily edited to show this unrealistic and unattainable image of a person. The general public is completely unknown to the behind-the-scenes portions of editing to these perfect images. Through these edited pictures, it places an impact on individuals and how they see themselves, especially when they just consistently compare their bodies. Everyone's bodies work differently, as everyone has a different body type, metabolism, and natural diet, like what they eat in a day usually, and natural daily movement, like how active they are within a day. And no, I don't mean working out, probably just walking up and down the stairs in your house. The problem with alteration has become increasingly significant within plastic surgeon offices. A large portion of people become mesmerized by how they look with filters and edits, and they now want to make their edits and unrealistic looks become reality and permanent. It just overall teaches people how to follow a trend or idea that may not have been completely thought out enough to realize the consequences of how you may have or are treating your body, and how your body will be impacted later on. I know this podcast episode seems to be on the more biased side of being negative, and I can assure you there are plenty of moments where social media was not that bad. However, because this is a serious topic, we need to face the reality of things. Before we end, I would like to thank those who were featured in this podcast and for everyone listening. If you are interested in more, listen to the next episode. Also, please, if you're struggling, please call a mental health hotline or even communicate with a doctor or a professional. Anywho, concluding this episode, social media seems all fun and games at first, but there are a lot of deeper and hidden scenarios that may happen to someone.